What is up, everybody? Welcome back to State of the Steelers. This is the post game show where we're talking about a very embarrassing loss. The Pittsburgh Steelers lose to the 49ers 30-7 in a game where I don't even think that the offense had any yards until the 2 minute of the first half when they would go have yards, aided by some penalties, but overall a pretty good drive on its own. That being the only drive that first half that they ended up getting yards on. It was pretty poor performance all the way around, in my opinion, from the offense to the defense. Punting, I would say that the brightest or the most when it comes to the different teams on the field. I think that Anthony McFarland showed some promise. They didn't really force the 49ers to punt too often, or put the Steelers in a situation when the 49ers did punt that they could return a ball. So all we did get to see on the special teams were kick returns and Presley Harvin punting the ball. And I'll say that Presley didn't have himself a great game today. Which is unfortunate because it appeared he was going in the right direction this entire, preseason. And it's unfortunate because everything seemed to be going in the right direction this preseason, and then it just seems like the Steelers just fell flat on their face in this one. Now, when it comes to the defensive side, I knew there was going to be some growing pains. You have a secondary that is, for the most part, new, right? You have Minka Fitzpatrick, who's returning. DeMonte KZ, he's been there before, but he wasn't a starter. It was Terrell Edmonds last year, and KZ was out for like half the season with a broken wrist, and so he played only specific packages and things like that. He wasn't a main component of the defense as much as the Steelers were hoping that he would become. But he never turned into that guy. And have Levi Wallace returning as a outside corner. He didn't do so well today either. It was a pretty poor performance on his end as well. He had, I believe, a personal foul penalty at one point as well. It was just bad. It was bad around. Kenny Pickett, he just did not look like anything that he was flashing during preseason. This looked like Kenny Pickett from, the Buffalo Bills game of last season, or even maybe not even that, because during that game, they kind of put the handcuffs on him. This was more like Miami Dolphin game where, they let Kenny cook, so to speak, and threw a couple picks in the wrong time. Now, could this be early season jitters? I sure do hope so. I sure do. But he was inaccurate for majority of the game, and he left a lot of plays and yards, probably scores on the field. But before we get into everybody and breaking down everything, thank you everybody for being here. Let's say hello to a few people in the live chat already. Thank you, Jared Devil, for being here. We have Afton Ford and Derby Entertainment, Umberto, OJ Steelers. It's one game, we'll be okay. The other AFC North teams didn't play that good. Yeah, that's true. That's 100% true. Steelers fan. So let's talk about some injuries that are confirmed. Cam Hayward had a groin. He was out for about a play or two, and then he went back in, tried to go on it, and maybe it was a series or two, not a play or two. And just one play back in, didn't make it off the field. Deontay Johnson had a pretty good game for the most part. He was when the ball was catchable, he caught them. He should have had a touchdown, but the ball placement there on the goal line was horrible. And it's just unfortunate. He went down with a hamstring. This one looked like more of the serious one, to be honest with you guys. I myself have pulled several hamstrings, and I've had one that was very serious. And those are the ones you can't step on. And it didn't appear that he was able to walk off on his own. He had to get help. So he's probably looking at maybe, he's a pro athlete, so he's probably looking about maybe 5 to 6 weeks on this one. Um, maybe, yeah, I'm thinking that if it's that bad, which it looked like it was kind of bad. Uh, Pat Fryermuth was he had a chest injury also from that hit he got in the end zone. Chicks is in the concussion protocol, and apparently he was put in the protocol late in the game. Dan Moore swapped over to the right side, and Broderick Jones ended up coming in. And Dan Moore on the left side didn't allow uh, Bosa to get a sack. Broderick Jones didn't allow Bosa to get a sack. But it was when Dan Moore went to the right side where things just Dan Moore allowed, I think it was like at least one sack, couple of pressures, and the sack started to come in from that right side. So as much as everybody wants, Dan Moore to be swapped over, I think it might take him some time to be the player he is on the right side. So I don't know if he has to go up against Cleveland next week, and he's on the right side there. It could be a long day. Could be a long day. And DeMarvin Leal had a arm injury, possibly a tricep. There was a couple of good things that came out of this game, though. I'll say, Anthony McFarland was able to return the ball pretty well. I thought he did a great job doing so. TJ Watt ties the sack record. He's probably going to be in early conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He had like 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and fumble recovery, I believe. Yeah, he's already, back to who he was prior to the injury last season. But today, I felt like, this team just kind of, and they just stunk it up. Now, I was expecting the defense to have some growing pains. You have a lot of new pieces, like I mentioned before, in the safety. You have an overhauled middle linebacker position. The front 7 were supposed to, be the rock there, right? That the rest of the defense can lean upon. And your offense was supposed to stay on the field. And that was supposed to, help this defensive back group and the middle linebacker group as they begin to grow together. I think this defense is going to be a better one. I think that they're going to be one of the top ones in the NFL. I'm not sure if we're going to see them at, number 1 or anything like that. Not now, at least. I think that by the time that they gel together and get that chemistry, it might be 2-3 games down the road. But, one of the things that the Steelers were supposed to be able to do to kind of compensate for the secondary and the middle linebacker group was the offense not get 3 and out over 3 and out over 3 and out. Interception, just short field. Just short time rest for the defense. This is not a formula for success. In fact, this is how, TJ Watt ended up getting injured last season in the season opener. And a lot of players ended up getting a lot of these soft tissue issues because they were playing a significant amount of time on defense throughout the game. Let's break down the stats. So the 49ers had the time of possession of 37 minutes and 23 seconds to the Pittsburgh Steelers 22 minutes and 37 seconds. That is outrageous. I think in the second half or in the first half going into the halftime, the 49ers had possession of the ball out of 30 minutes over 20. That is combination by the 49ers. Offensive yards, 49ers had 391 to Pittsburgh Steelers 239. Yards per play, 0.9 for the 49ers and 5.9 for the 49ers and 3.9 for the Steelers on yards per play. It's just, the ball wasn't getting pushed down the field. And I think they'll be all right. It's just one game. Nobody should be jumping off a cliff right now or throwing in the towel, and saying that the season's done. Let's just see if this team can grow together. I think that, throughout the preseason, Kenny Pickett played some vanilla defenses, but he also didn't play, 49er caliber defense. And so I think that it may have been a little bit of a surprise to him how fast they were. Those guys are impressive. You got to give it up to the 49ers. Give it up to their, Brock Purdy and the offense. They did well. They did well. And today, they were the better team. Who's to say if the Steelers would, meet them later down the road, if the outcome would be different once this team builds chemistry. Let's see. Penalties. The San Francisco 49ers had 11 penalties. The Steelers had 6. That was a positive for the Steelers. Penalty yards, 85 for the 49ers, 60 for the Steelers. Yeah, so also, I saw in the comment section as well that Darnell Washington had a big block. I saw that on Bosa. Like, hey, that guy can block. He handled him one-on-one and panned him onto the ground. And Bosa was there, like, kind of looking surprised. Like, did I just get pancaked by a tight end? It was quite. That was one of the pluses of the positives in the game. I think they should have targeted him a little bit more in the red zone there, though. He's a big body guy. I just don't understand the scheme and the personnel sometimes. It doesn't make any sense to me. You get into the red zone, why not use the guy that looks like a mountain that can go up and catch the ball and put the ball where only he can catch it and let him come down with it. Let him box the defense out like a basketball player. Or better yet, you also have, George Pickens out there as well. I don't get it. So individual stats we have. Brock Purdy he was 19 for 29 for 220 yards, 7.6 yard per average, 2 touchdowns. 23 yards was his longest. Yeah, he was sacked 3 times. He was rated 111.3. Kenny Pickett was 31 for 46 for 232 yards, 5 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He had a 31-yard long catch, but he was sacked 5 times with a rating of 68.4. Last season, towards the second half of the season, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion, started to perform better because they started to run the ball better. And that wasn't the case this week. As far as rushing goes, it looks like the Steelers had, let me see, it's like 41 yards. Christian McCaffrey had 3 times that much today by himself. So you had Christian McCaffrey at 22 carries for 152 yards, 6.9 yard per carry, 1 touchdown. And going back to Purdy and whatnot, what do you think that Patrick Peterson's going to say on his podcast this week? For those that don't know, he said that earlier on his podcast, before the 49ers game, obviously, that the 49ers have some tails and that he guaranteed basically an interception on Brock Purdy. And instead, Brock Purdy threw both of his touchdowns on Patrick Peterson. And it seemed like he was kind of picking on him. Now, P had his moments. He should have had 1 interception over the middle. Purdy, I think, was just picking on him a little too much. But, I don't know. I don't know what he's going to say this week. I'll be interested to find out if he calls out the Browns. So as far as rushing goes, Brock Purdy also had 3 rushes for 21 yards. Deebo Samuel had 2 for 8. And Elijah Mitchell had 5 for 10. Pittsburgh Steelers had Kenny Pickett with 4 yards on 1 carry. Jaylen Warren had 3 carries for 6 yards. And Najee Harris had 6 carries for 31 yards. And 24 of those came on 1 play. So outside of that, he was 5 for 7 or 6 yards, something like that. Oh, yeah. He's going to be pissed. He was definitely close to an INT, but not good enough. Patrick P gave up 2 TDs, outsides on a field goal, and no INT. Your talk less and perform more. 100%. I agree. As far as receiving yards go, Allen Robinson had the most targets. He was targeted 8 times. He had 5 receptions, 64 yards, along with 31. Calvin Austin targeted 6 times. He had 6 receptions. So each time he was targeted, he caught the ball. Now, I know that on the pass interference play, he dropped that one, but because there was a penalty for the pass interference, the incompletion is wiped out. He had 37 yards and with a 13-yard long. Now, he's going to be the guy that's going to be stepping up for Deontay Johnson, in my opinion. Deontay Johnson, I'm going to be out for a couple of weeks with this hamstring. I don't think I could be wrong, but the way he went down and how he was grabbing at the back of his leg and he wasn't extending his leg lead me to believe that it might be one of the more serious ones. And if so, the Steelers are going to need Austin to step up. He's going to be the guy that's going to be on the outside now. He needs to start building a lot more chemistry with Kenny Pickett. Those two guys are going to have to put in the overtime, the after hours, after practice, working on their craft so they can get on the same page. Because, this week, this game here, I don't know. I know that some of the passes that Kenny Pickett had were inaccurate. They were underthrown or behind or, other things like that. But some of them also were miscommunication where, Kenny Pickett is expecting him to, sit somewhere, the receiver to sit somewhere in a curl or stop, and the receiver continues to go or continues to run to the side. And it's just that can't happen. There's a lot of mistakes that are happening. And when that starts to happen, your quarterback's going to lose confidence in your receivers. And I don't know, you're going to end up seeing the quarterback all longer and in hopes to get somebody wide open. Right. And they're going to end up taking a couple of sacks. And I think that's what exactly it is that we saw in this game. So Deontay Johnson had 3 receptions, 48 yards, along with 26. And that was when he ended up having his hamstring injury. Pat Freiermuth was targeted 4 times, only had 1 reception. Now, the targets that that Kenny Pickett was giving to Pat Freiermuth was were contested. One of them was ended up getting hit in the chest, which is the reason why he's on the injury report. But he did have the touchdown. That play right there on the 2-minute drive that ended with the touchdown to Pat Freiermuth. I thought maybe perhaps that was shaking off the nerves. That pass in particular was on target. The other passes throughout that drive, there were a few that were kind of questionable. Even the announcers were saying, this is not looking good for Kenny. So, but yeah, it's really nothing great for this team. It was a pretty sad day. Let's see. As far as, guys that I thought stepped up, I think that Keanu Benton played well when he was in there. I'm not sure why he's not in there more. He seemed disruptive. He seemed like the offensive line had trouble blocking him. I don't get why he wasn't there more. TJ Watt, he's the brightest and lone, star on this team today, for this performance. Outside of him, I think a lot of people. So let me go through the comment section. If you have any questions, ask them, and then we'll I'll probably call this a show early. I gotta leave here pretty soon. Who's the QB coach? I think they have 2 QB coaches. I can't remember who they are off the top of my head. Steelers were out coached. I'd agree to that. That's true. This is the best. This is the attitude you have to do. You have to use it in a situation or a game like this. Is just bury the disaster, move on to the Saints or the Stains, which are the Browns. Which is a game that me and my father will be at. I'll be at that game. The games that me and my father have attended, the Steelers have won every game. So I'm not trying to jinx that, but hopefully that tradition continues. So I'll be out there and with my father, and hopefully they win. Let's see. Evan says, I'm not as shocked as some. I was wondering how KP would do against the top defense. I think he needs some shoring up. Yeah, there could be such a thing as going in there a little bit too confident. Thinking that you're going to just walk in or have the 49ers come in and you're just going to beat their tail because you're a Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that might have been the attitude going into this game. When you have like Patrick Peterson out there and saying that he's going to guarantee an interception and that the 49ers have tails, like doing that in week one, you really don't know the team that you're playing against. There's not even really much film that you can look at the last year's film, but a lot of those players aren't there. Some of the coaching staff aren't there. And, you have schemes that are there, but you don't know, even with Brock Purdy, he doesn't have that many games under his belt. I think he has like 8 or 9. He doesn't have a full season under his belt. And you don't know how much he was being limited last year because he 7th round rookie, in there for, Garoppolo and Lance. So, there's a possibility that he was handcuffed to a certain extent, and maybe perhaps now that he's understanding the offense and he's gone through an entire, training camp and, being the number one guy, everything that we say about Kenny Pickett, I ain't gonna lie, man, he looked like a good quarterback. He played very well. Today, I'm not gonna say, but today he was the better quarterback on the field. And if you think that's not right, then I don't know. But it doesn't say that he's a better quarterback overall, just today. But I'll say he's the real deal. Warren was fighting for every route, every yard. Yeah, he definitely was. So was Najee. Najee was playing tough out there as well. I just don't think that the Steelers were ready for the speed of the 49ers defense. And that's what it looked like for me. From my point of view, it looked like the Steelers were anticipating maybe a slower team, or maybe perhaps they've been practicing against a slower team. But it appeared that the 49ers were surprisingly quick for them. There was a play where the offensive lineman, and it may have been Seumalo, he could have been caught up in the mix, right? But there was a play where Najee Harris gets blown up and the middle linebacker for the 49ers just hits him hard, right? In that situation, one of the linemen is supposed to help out and then move to the second level and take the inside linebacker. And they were so fast that by the time that the lineman was, shedding off to go to the second level, Najee Harris was getting knocked back. So, yeah, they worked very quick and very fast, and it didn't seem like they were ready for it, to be honest with you. Athens says KP needs to get his head right. He made some bad decisions today. Hope he learns and moves on. I hope so too. Yeah, we know, Steelers fan. Ben Schoen's all kind of fire. Yeah, he did. What's up, Claude? Put Porter and replace Wallace. Can't cover a tackle. Alicia, I agree. I agree 100% here. Like, how much worse could Joey Porter have done than Levi Wallace? He just was getting burned again this game. It was reminding me of the Eagles game where they were just picking on him as well. It was Brock Purdy was not afraid to target these cornerbacks. He wasn't. And, by the way the defense played, they look like they should, he didn't have a reason to be afraid to target these corners. Yeah, it definitely was embarrassing. Kenny looked like Mr. Irrelevant and Purdy looked like the first round quarterback. Yeah, I agree to that. I agree. Ben got a lot of push when he got in there, and Joey Porter Jr. should start. He couldn't do no worse than leave. Exactly. Uh, Willie Coyote Wallace. That's funny. Marlon, yeah, that's exactly what it 100%. Harvin should be cut today. I won't go that far, but did Braden Mann get picked up by somebody? I think I don't know if you need to have another punter on the team to push him. Maybe perhaps once he thinks that, hey, I won the job, I can relax. That's not how it works in the NFL. He played poorly as well. The O-line did Najee no favors. We all see what he could do when he has holes. Um, why we keep blaming Najee like he blocks for himself? Yeah, I agree with you. Nobody ran well. Him, Jalen Warren, Kenny Pickett had a couple of rushes, but that was him trying to, not get sacked. It just kind of seemed like there wasn't even rushing attempts. And perhaps, every time that they attempted to rush outside of the one big run from Najee, I think is an indication why they were doing it, but that's definitely not the right move. I get it, like 20-7 or 20-0 at one point, 27-7. Yeah, you gotta try to score points fast, right? And not burn as much as possible. So in those moments I get it, but even throughout the first half, there was no commitment to it. When it was done, it was pretty poor though. So I can understand why. First game of the season cannot be overstated, but adjustments are necessary. 100%. I think that in this game here, I don't know who's to blame as far as the offensive performance. Is it the coaching staff? Is it Matt Canada? Is it the quarterback? I don't know. I think that's something that will be determined only when the all 22 comes out, and we can see the film and see, hey, are there any wide receivers running wide open? Is Kenny Pickett not reading the defense correctly? What is he seeing? And if those are the situation in that case, then you work on it. If it's not, then and it's a coaching situation where the concepts aren't working, they're predictable for the defense, they're simple, and you got to start asking yourself the question, like, how much longer can you go with an offensive coordinator that continually puts less than points a game? You know what I'm saying? So there's some questions that need to be answered in this. It's a reason why the Bills didn't want Levi Wallace. It's possible. Like with Levi Wallace, he's a guy that he doesn't have speed. That's his problem. Like, he was a walk-on at Alabama because of it. He ran like a 4.6, I think, in the 40 in the combine. And I think that's the reason why he was an undrafted guy. He's kind of slow. And in this game against these receivers, being smart and knowing what the offense is going to do can only get you so far. At a certain point, you can know everything, but you have to be able to outperform the other team, right? You want to be that team that, is outperforming even the opposition knows what you're doing. It wasn't that today. Purity says it was only one game though. Hopefully we learned something and picked themselves up. 100%. It just was only one game. We can't overreact to it. I think a lot of teams have won in the first week or lost in the first week horribly, and it not be an indication of the result of what the season would be. We can't say, all right, this one game happened and they played poorly. They're going to play poorly every game and they're not going to get better. They're not going to grow. They're not going to build the chemistry. This was a very tough week one opponent defensively because, like I mentioned before, you have these guys that are new to the team. They don't have that camaraderie. They haven't been in a battle tested situation like in real season where the offense has looked at what you're saw your tendencies and are trying to attack your weaknesses. Um, and you're going up against a team that just is moving around a lot. And Patrick Peterson himself, he said, this team, there's going to have to be a lot of communication. And the teams that have been great for the Pittsburgh Steelers were teams where they really didn't need to communicate. They knew what each other were going to do based on what they saw. They were able to depend on each other. This is not that defense yet. And so because they have to have that communication, they're going to be a step behind. And hopefully, sooner than later, that step behind will shrink. Fortunately, we got some teams going up the next couple of weeks that aren't necessarily, the top of the, top echelons of the NFL. We start off with the Browns who beat the Bengals, but the Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow didn't play all training camp or preseason because he had his calf injury. And I think he just started practicing, last week. So the same thing happened last season when, the Steelers played him. He hadn't played and he looked very rusty. He was rusty this year. I don't think he's going to be playing as poorly, the rest of the year as that. He'll get up and I will do the same, hopefully. It just sucks, man, because the Steelers were one of the more hyped teams coming in. People were starting to pick them to win the North, definitely be the dark horse, go into the playoffs. And I can already hear the dang talking heads right now of what they're going to say about Pickett, the Steelers preseason, and how it was a fluke. So be prepared for that. That's going to happen this week. Let's see. Afton says, I wasn't impressed with Neil's level of try today. I agree. He seemed lost out there. And who else I was surprised about today? Landon Roberts. He had some missed tackles. The guy that was supposed to be the sure up tackler, the thumper, he missed a couple tackles today. He did have a big one on McCaffrey, though. The one on the third down and goal. They ended up converting it on fourth down, but that was a pretty good stop. It wasn't on goal. I'm sorry. It was third and short. And I do think this is the toughest game on the schedule. So there's that. Yeah, this is one of the toughest ones on the schedule. The Steelers need better coaching job. Tomlin needs to go for keeping. If Steelers need better coaching job, Tomlin needs to go for keeping Canada. I mean, I get why you keep Canada, right? Because it's not really been Canada's fault up to probably last year, right? He had his first year was with Ben, and that offense is Ben's offense with a little bit more motion. And you had a 40-year-old quarterback who had he didn't have the arm he used to have. If you think he did, you're just lying to yourself. He was, in my opinion, I'm not gonna lie, I think 41-year-old Ben would probably play better than what Pickett did today. But going back to Canada, Canada wants somebody that can at least be mobile, can move around, and that just wasn't Ben. And then last season you had Trubisky coming in, so you tailored your offense towards Mitch Trubisky, and everything gets uprooted. A quarter of the season in, you end up switching to the rookie quarterback at the toughest time of your schedule. You can't really open up the playbook in that moment. You kind of have to keep it simple. And it didn't work against those top tier teams in the NFL. It looked a lot like it looked today. And, you can't really put that all in Canada. Those are just outcomes of the situation more than anything. Now, this season, there's no excuse. You have your quarterback. You've had him for over more than this training camp. You had him last year. You had the full off season, full preseason. There's no excuse now. You have your receivers. You have your first round running back in Najee Harris. You have your 1-2 punch with Jalen Warren behind him. The receiver room might be a question now. If Deontay is going to be down for a while, can Calvin Austin step up in that role? Heard about Calvin Austin from training camp and Latrobe and whatnot is that his hands weren't as sure as Deontay Johnson's was. We might see a little bit more drops with Calvin Austin out there. But I don't know if he can take it up full time. He's going to have to get on the right page with Kenny Pickett. Maybe Allen Robinson moves out to the outside. I don't know. He's been practicing all year as a slot, so I'm not sure you make that move. Pat Freiermuth is injured, so you would think that he might be a guy that goes into a slot a couple of times, but he's got the chest injury now, so it's tough. It says, I'm not sure, but a few broadcasters called Pitt struggling this year. Yeah, I mean, Vegas did. They said that they put the line at 8, which is less games won than they won last year. So that's what they said. I tend to think that they're not going to have that bad of a year. I can't see them going backwards. I won't be honest. I'll be honest. It appeared they went a little bit backwards today. But I think over the course of the entire season, I can't see this team going backwards. And so I see this team at least getting 10 wins. KC lost too. But I'll be honest, KC's offense didn't look as lethargic as the Steelers' offense. Steelers also need more vocal leadership from the sidelines from coaches and players. You can't get punched in the mouth at home and not say anything. Where's the fire and passion? Yeah. I don't know about this Steeler fan. Mitchie Itchy plays better than KP. Well, I don't know about that. The problem with Mitch Trubisky is if he gets rattled in the pocket, it's over. And there was quite a bit of pressure for Kenny Pickett. So I don't think that Mitch Trubisky could have handled that pocket better. Kenny looked shook to me. His accuracy wasn't what it was in the preseason. Hope he turns it around. I agree. Yeah, I will say, regardless of KP's poor decision making, he doesn't panic the way Mitch does. He called it. I do think KP will pick it up. He does watch a lot of tape and does learn his own mistakes. He is very good at admitting his own mistakes, just weren't ready for this one. I can agree to that. Yes, please hit that like, follow, and subscribe. Happens when fans use their hearts, not their eyes, and swell the off-season hype. The reality train arrived. But, I don't know if it really did. It was the first game against a very good team that was the NFC Championship last year, a team that has been together for a little bit. They just kind of needed the quarterback position to be solved. They needed somebody that was consistent and could stay on the field. And, they got that from Purdy to a certain extent. He did leave the championship game due to an injury. So that's a bit of their concern is who can stay on the field. But as far as the consistent aspect of it, I think they found their guy. And, this is a Super Bowl type of team that the Steelers went up against. And the goal for this team is to build up to that, right? I don't think that this team could go in and beat, and this is the reality aspect of it. I did say that I felt that this team could probably go up against any team and be competitive. I'm not sure of that now, but let's just say maybe 3-4 games down the road, that could be possible. Let's just see them work together and we'll see where they go. Khan needs to go after Arch Manning. Well, if we this a couple more times, maybe he will. What's up, Deja Vu? Never fails. Colorado Buffaloes could beat us the way we played today. I don't know. I don't know about that. But I will say that this team played horrible today. There was no ands, its, or buts about it. This team just played horrible. They fell on their face. They got punched in the mouth. Let's see how they respond. Character isn't, how you get knocked down. It's how you get back up, right? Let's see the character and the morale of this team. They have a long week to prepare and to swallow this one. The next game is on Monday night against the Cleveland Brownies. And, it's at home. It's redemption time. It's time for the Pittsburgh Steelers to go and, get some payback and, put up some yards and things like that against a division foe. Now, if they have another performance like this, it's going to be a lot of questions in the Berg, in my opinion. Exactly. How do they do against the Browns? I think they, I'm a homer, as you probably can see. I'm in the same team probably is going to win majority of the games until the first quarter of the season. Once the first quarter of the season happens, I'm a little bit more realistic where the team is at. Right now I still think that maybe perhaps this was just first game jitters. Maybe the players feeding into their own hype. You know what I'm saying? I think probably has a lot to do with it. When you have Patrick Peterson calling out the other team's quarterback and basically saying they have tails and that they're going to be intercepting the ball and he guarantees a pick. That's feeding into the hype before they haven't even done anything yet. They got knocked back down to the ground, back to reality. Let's see how they react to it. Let's see how they come back. It's my fault. I wore the wrong shirt under my jersey. I took my jersey off and we scored a touchdown. And I was like, all right, maybe I'll keep it off myself. And it didn't work. But that's the nature of being a true Steelers fan. Superstition, right? Well, guys, I'm going to have to cut it loose already. I got to get going in the next 15 minutes. I want to thank everybody that's been in the live chat, everybody who subscribe, the whole 9 yards. We'll be doing some more breakdown this week. As soon as the All 22 comes out, we'll be looking at some of the better plays that the Steelers did, some of the worst plays that the Steelers did come down, look at them. So make sure you like and subscribe before that. You don't want to miss it. Don't forget also we have the Unofficial Steelers podcast. I see Nathan in the building. Nothing I can do about it. And so with that being said, please hit that like. We got Nathan in the building. He's part of the Unofficial Steelers podcast. And we'll be talking about this, I think, on my channel on Tuesday. And you don't want to miss it. So until then, we'll see you then. This is not going to be that bad, guys. I think this team's going to pick it up. Just him. We got hit in the mouth. Let's see if they respond.